Yo, 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 yo. What is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today I thought it would be really cool to do another reaction video. This time, Chiz had actually put a video out about the betrayers that have been served their justice in reference to COC and MILF, and wanted to cover it. Now, there's kind of pockets here and there, but we're going to kind of focus on the meat of it. We're also going to show you some deep data stats, or deeper data stats as well, and just kind of give our take on it. Again, I thought it was an interesting video as far as where he was coming from, and thought it would be nice just to do a little walkthrough. So here we go.
We actually did it! We are winning the Dragon Zone, and I was worried for a time that that was not going to happen. But we've done it. Dragon Zone is about to be wrapped up against a very impressive team, and also a team that betrayed us in the past. So stick around in this video for an overview of the dragons. And look, these city building war games have no shortage of drama. And if you've been following our story, this group over here betrayed us in the past. And it was pretty gross because they betrayed us right when we were battling against a team that had also betrayed us in the past. These guys used to be a part of our group, and they left, and their intention, as I understood it, this season was to end our existence. And in the face of that, we said, hey, you know what? We're going to make this a competitive season. So just to set the stage for the allies and the fighting in this video, what I think I want to do in this video is review briefly the players that are on the them off 2v1 on the ridge. When we tossed it in, consider smashing the subscribe button and let against a group that had betrayed us. I didn't even know till recently, like, apparently their intention was to end us this season, right? It's extremely impressive, very strong. And they approached us and said, hey, do you want to work together this season and be allies? Which I really appreciate. And I think our response to them, and I'm not in Diplo, but our response to them was, we would love to work with you. However, we want this to be a balanced season. And so what ended up happening is COC allied the group that had betrayed us. And if you're wondering, why aren't you saying their names out loud? It's actually kind of funny, but YouTube literally limits monetization when I use these two names together. You know why. You know why. So anyways,
I just wanted to pause there for a sec because, again, being realistic, you know, you do not have to say, again, if that is true, we do not have to say their names, again, as together. You can break it up how I did, and you could say, oh yeah, MILF and COC, right? Or COC and MILF. And then that way you get around it. Or you could just say ILF, right? With no front letter. Again, there's ways that you could work around it, but it seems like that was kind of the forefront of where Chiz's mind was at as far as when he was thinking about, okay, well, should I say this or should I not say this, right? Based on the explanation you provided.
They grouped up. Their power combined is about 20 billion. And we allied with RK, who's over here. Their power currently is about 8.3. But our power combined, I want to say they were like 8.5 before fighting, and we were like 13.5, right? So the power of the two groups was comparable, like 22-ish billion to 20 billion. And there were also 5 billion power alliances in the mix. So we are allied with this group over here. It's another RK Fam alliance, 5 billion. There's another 5 billion alliance, POTC. They're our allies. And on the opposing side, DK and Inwa were allies. So it's pretty even, all in all. There is also, I think, smaller groups on perhaps both sides. Like I know on our side, LOCY was an ally. They are 2.4 billion power. But you get the idea. Like it's pretty remarkably even as far as matchmaking goes. But there's an important lesson right at the start of this. And if you take nothing else away from this, I think it's insanely valuable, which is that power is a data point, but another data point you don't get to see that is immensely valuable is the actual punching power. And the punching power you can see after the fighting happens in terms of merits, and maybe see before the fighting happens in terms of the number of T5 players that are in each group. Because I would say that our allies have been great this season and they punch as hard as they possibly can, but their ability to punch is very different than a group that has more T5 players. And that just, it is what it is. So here are the final merits at the conclusion of the season, and I'll share snapshots of how we got to this point.
So here in this case, right, Chiz is pretty spot on here, right? When it comes to, you know, if you're looking at fighting capabilities, PvP capacities, what is your actual true strength, if you will. And usually, again, I hope that at one point in time, because bear in mind, what you have to remember about merits is that you can merit farm in the merit category from zone 1, where you're basically just having 2 legions from 2 opposing alliances that are just, again, trying to attack and last as long as possible, do as much damage as possible, etc., to accumulate as many merits in that instance. And so, this is something that is pretty standard. If you go in and you look at a number of KVKs, if there's no active wars or PvP that's going on, there's a good chance that if you go somewhere around a junction point where 2 or more alliances are at, you're probably going to see some merit trading that's going on. And as I said, this can happen as early as Zone 1. This can happen, as early as a couple days after the KVK opens, right, once the peace shields end up going down. And so that's why they ended up introducing personal glory points, right, which will show you that here. So if you look at this, and we're actually in the kingdom that Chiz and them are in, right, personal, and now bear in mind, they don't have this for alliances. It'd be nice if they eventually do come out with this. But basically what personal glory points are is that they're points that you earn that have different allocations per unit tier, and you can only gain them by attacking a legion belonging to a lord, or simply put, attacking a lord from another affiliated region, meaning a different Zone 1 starting region, right? So another way to say that is you basically will earn those points in Zone 2 and beyond, right? That's another way of putting it. Now, that is a lot more accurate of truer PvP capabilities than merits are. It doesn't mean that merits are not. It's just that because you have this chance of having merits inflated a bit with the merit trading, it's not 100% accurate. Could we argue and say it's probably 90-ish% accurate? Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. But again, personal glory points, and then if they want to expand this, right, if they did personal glory points, like if you were able to click on an alliance, right, or you could click on a player, and it would tell you what their tier kill breakdown or tier personal glory point breakdowns are at each unit tier level. So you could see what's their glory points or what are their merits at T1, T2, T3, T4, T5. And then you can kind of do what, some of the rock is what is commonly done when you're trying to address KDPs in rock, right, where you're looking at your amount of T4 and T5 kills and deaths, and you're trying to accumulate those. So again, just wanted to give some context there to that one. And then on the T5 portion, I want to address that real quick if I may as well, is that on that one, this is how it looks, right? So I took the data and the stats in the beginning, and you could see here between BDO, RKO, versus COC and MILF, that was basically the main matchup in Zone 4. Again, there was others that were there, but just because those were the strongest combined total power alliances when they were going at it on both sides, you could see here that there was 96 60 million plus players between one group, and then there was 97 60 mil plus players, right? So very close to 60 mil plus. You get to 80 mil plus, and now it's 40 versus 40. It's even. But then you get to 100 mil plus, right, and you have 16 to 11, right, when it came to COC and MILF versus BDO. So you could see here that it kind of edges out on that front. Now, if we look at total number of T5s, which this is based on being 50 mil plus, you could see here that between RKO and BDO, they were at 132. On the other side, for COC and MILF, they were at 125. I think that is 111. Yeah, 125, right? So the BDO RKO group had 7 more. I mean, it's still not a large margin. It's a small one. And you could say if that plays to a small advantage or not, but it is relatively close. And so, again, just wanted to give some specific numbers there.
And the evolution of that journey, all right? So we're at 1.5 billion merits. The group that betrayed us is at 1 billion merits. And I'll show pictures. as we go through each stage, but each alliance and player played a critical role in getting to here. So how did we get here? What was the first fight? The first fight that people were like, oh, Chisgule, make a video, show the stats, was at these two passes. And man, we lived at these passes for a long time. I will have a dedicated video talking through this, but we had to fight against both COC and the group that betrayed us at these passes. We took a 2v1. Not in our favor. The two of them, so it was their combined power of 20 billion versus our 13.5. And we held this area, and the entire time, we only lost 2 flags, which when we went into uptime, it was these two over here, we just rebuilt them. Some of these flags are no longer here, and all of their land is no longer here because of what happened next. Because we held this position for 6 or so days, all right? And the next thing that happened was actually, I should say at the same time that was happening, there was a battle going on in this zone over here, all right? Hollandale. Now, the battle that took place in Hollandale is that our allies were at these passes, and they were battling against DK and POTC, not POTC, Inwa, right? These two alliances that are now over here, all right? And our allies pushed in pretty good, but they couldn't get much further, and they had pushed in to about here, for LOCY and POTC. And a part of the reason they couldn't get any further is because COC had land all the way down through here to protect. So it was an interesting dynamic where COC had choices. Do they push us at these passes, or do they use their power to help their allies? And for the most part, they helped their allies and stalled our allies from getting access to this pass into the final zone. This could have been a much bigger deal than it ended up being, because the main fight ended up resolving before this fight down here ended up resolving and major territory changed hands. So I think this fight could have taken many more days to come to a conclusion before it would start to influence the fight between COC, the people that betrayed us, and us, right? So now we can talk about the main event.
And I just wanted to pause here for a sec, because I mean, what Chiz is saying ultimately is correct in the kind of main regards. So, you know, if you looked at this is the T1 season map, right? So this is effectively season 4, season 5 map that we have right now, and it's the most current season, KVK season, that's being played in Call of Dragons. Most of the time, in the majority of KVKs, and we've covered this, I did this in my KVK update video where I go through all the KVKs for the 3 main seasons, which is the T1 season, the S2 Plus, and the Season 2 KVK for those groups, and we go through each of them, we kind of give you updates. Many of them, for T1, you're usually seeing the main event that's happening at the middle kind of central area, which is closer to Dragon, and then on the southern pass, or the southern route, or you could say the bottom quarter, if you will, is then kind of playing out the secondary fight. However, the secondary fight can very much influence the main fight. And you're seeing a little bit of that right now in ST1-4, probably more exacerbated in that sense. And there's others too as well, but that's just the first thing that comes to mind, where you're seeing a group that is pushing down low, which I believe is EXG and someone else that I'm forgetting their name, but they're pushing LSK, and then you have, you know, EXXL, or I think maybe it's EXXL that's down there in EXG, and then you have the TFS, and then they're going up against EIS and BXS, right? And EXG is there at some points, depending on the front they're fighting on, or EXXL is, but very much once that southern side is won, that can really turn the tide. So you can almost make an argument that a play style for some could just be stalling or stalemating out the middle of the map until the southern fight is decided, and then they can come in there and assist, and then you're just going to have a little bit more power to play into that advantage for the overall war. Let's continue.
The Dragon Zone opening. And at the start of the zone, let me tell you, I will have more footage of this in like a detailed video, but you don't see any of their territory here because they deleted it all. And the reason they deleted their territory showing their entry into the zone is that they were ultimately pushed into a position where they needed to have forts to survive. But before that happened, we were getting wrecked. I actually was shocked. I thought that if we could hold them off 2v1, that we were going to be in great shape when we had an ally come with us. And that was not the case. And I think the terrain advantage of being on defense is way bigger than people give credit to, because we were able to maneuver to some really powerful situations on defense. But when we got onto this plateau, okay, the folks that betrayed us and COC, they built around the top, came through here. We built around the bottom. Our land is obviously still here. And we were about here on the plateau, and we were in trouble. I thought that when the second or so day of this fighting started, that we had maybe a 5% chance of winning. It looked bleak. They had the land here. We tried to cut them off from building south, but they built south with both of their shells, okay? The Betrayer shell and
I just want to point out on the defensive comment. I do tend to agree with this, because if you look at, again, a lot of the kind of defensive holds where basically once you kind of get to a point where PvP pacing is slowing down, whether that's at a choke point or in the open field, you typically will start to see a couple things happen. One, turrets are starting to be built, keeps are starting to be built, RSS nodes are being, tactically placed on the kind of 50-yard lines for teams, and then you're starting to see a little bit more restructuring of cities. And this is because if they're going to have to push into you, why not have to fight some extra damage dealing objects, in this case turrets, keeps, etc. That and again, I'm not even talking about being on a ramp, being on a bridge, being at a choke where a spire is or is not. This is just something that's pretty standard for alliances to do. If the fighting is slowing down, it's okay, let's go ahead and start kind of getting our defensive structure set up so we can just try to have small advantages here and there when it comes to playing on defense. So I think it's just kind of inherently there are some more advantages on defense than being on offense at the moment, right? That isn't really just because you're playing defense, it's because you're building these things that are then giving you some of these advantages.
the COC shell, and they set up forts down over here surrounding this spire, making it impossible to hit the spire without defeating a fort while eating spire fire the entire time, okay? And they had keeps around it, and. It was a defensive position. Wow, okay? So that was their goal, was to basically get to here, bottleneck us off, and ideally they wanted to push us down. So we were pushed to here, and we rallied. We turned it around. You may not ever have the opportunity to hear a battle speech from Duz, who is an R5 of the Blood Fam alliance that I'm in. But, look, this was it. This was the do or die. And we basically very transparently said, either we all show up for the next whatever it takes to get this done, or we lose. And this is it. This is the whole thing. And that is a amazingly short summary of what actually happened. But regardless, we pushed and we took this entire top land back with a tidal wave of activity. An unbeatable we walked all over their land.
Yeah, and first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Duz. I've known Duz for a while, since beta, and I'm so happy that he's still playing. Such a good guy. And, I've had the opportunity to talk to him a couple times. So the fact that Chiz is here, giving my boy some flowers, man, props to that. And Chiz is right, man. They were at a point where it looked bleak. And I even remember having a couple conversations with people on the COC and MILF side, and they basically flat out told me, they're like, dude, I just don't know. Like, they just had crazy activity that one day, and that if they kept that up, they're like, we just don't know what's going to happen. Like, it was just wild for them to see that. So, again, man, they came out with a vengeance, absolutely.
Until they no longer dared leave their cities. And that is not an exaggeration. We showed up big, and it's nasty, man. And then we shoved our way down here. So in the next spire, these guys, the Betrayer team and COC, they built, and again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful by not, had them on the run. They built flat. Even if they lost these forts over here, they'd have new forts to work from and then build toward the dragon and keep it going, okay? So even if they were in trouble, their goal at that point became to stall long enough for their allies to potentially win and come to their aid, or something to that effect, right? Just keep working through choke points, keep moving around. But we kept up the pressure, and I just can't believe that overnight. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m. taking this Spire and taking out started. Blood Fam, that's us, are at 13.5 billion power. At least to my knowledge. I mean, like, maybe there was fighting in some of the other zones. I don't think there was for some of the smaller alliances, but whatever. The merits, $500 million for Blood Fam, 400 million for Team Betrayer and COC. All right, and our allies in RK, they were fighting against Inwa and others.
Okay, yeah. So this is just like the matchup breakdown for power, merits, things like that. And again, I can show you kind of where it is right now. That for me really is kind of like the meat of it that I just wanted to touch on. Because again, there was even I think a part in there, like, so if we look at Alliance merits now, right, you can see that for BDO, RKO, COC, MILF, Alliance power as well for them, right? It's still kind of 1, 4, 2, 3 that you can see. Again, even kind of how it looks now, you could see BDO having a little bit more of an advantage power-wise, but again, that's, I would imagine there's still a lot of healing that's going on. And then obviously we have the personal glory points. I'll kind of show you just the top 20 there for those that are curious. There's 13 people over 1 billion, which is, again, I would imagine most T4, T5s are being rounded out there. And this is just kind of how the territory looks. But yeah, man, I mean, it was just very interesting. I guess one thing is like I said in the beginning, right? How Chiz was like still referring to them as the Betrayer Alliance, which again, from his perspective and what happened, I get it. I think overall, the most interesting thing to me about this, right, which again, Chiz hinted at already a couple times, which is just the phenomenal rallying that BDO did. I don't think, and even from the public and from the community standpoint, it was looking pretty grim as well. And people were really kind of rallying to COC and to MILF, at least as it pertained to how it looked when they were pushing so far on the plateau. And so to see that resurgence from BDO and RKO to put in that work, and then not only that, but to sustain for how long they did. I mean, again, this was a very close matchup. Power, T5 to T5. You look at 60 mils to 60 mil, 80 mil plus to 80 mil plus, 100 mil plus to 100 mil plus. Like, it was very, very close, right? Very low margin of difference. And for them to basically just flip the switch and hit a 180 and have it last as long as they did, I mean, you got to give respect to that. You got to give kudos to that for how they came out. They put their money where their mouth was, and they showed up. So, yeah, man, I mean, just watch. The one thing for me, though, is I would love to go and talk to some of the people from COC and MILF and just ask them, like, what happened, right? Like, was there some kind of breakdown? Because like when you're winning, when the momentum is on your side and you're trending for the W, and then all of a sudden it's just the script flips on you, and then not only that, but you're just consistently losing a lot more ground than what you made up. I just wonder if something happened, right? So for me, I'm going to try to reach out to them because I just think it would be fascinating just to kind of hear from their side on, what went down, if anything, or was it just, hey, they just had more people that showed up to fight than we did consistently over the period of time. So again, if you're in the know or you played there, I'd love to hear how you saw things happening, right? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch y'all later.